All right. So I think we'll start now. I hope you guys are ready. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the preliminary 3, room 3 of Z132nd Architectural Students Workshops, first ever debate competition, Beyond. Today's match is between Fulminari from UTM and UITM SI from UITM Suri Iskandar. The motion for today's debate is this House believes that artificial intelligence, AI, should govern and oversee the country of Malaysia. Now I will be announcing the assigned positions for each team. Fulminar from UTM will be acting as the government side. Meanwhile, UITM SI from UITM Suri Iskandar will be acting as the opposition side for today's match. We hope every speaker is clear on their respective team side. Now 15 minutes will be given among each team speakers to discuss among themselves using their own means of communication. Please note that speakers must mute their microphones and turn off their cameras during the preparation time. Speakers may not try to communicate with the competing team in any way, shape, or form. The 15 minutes starts now. The preparation time has ended. Speakers, please turn on your cameras so that we can begin. Before we start the debate, the speakers for Fulminar must state their speaker's position. Oh, I think you guys don't have to because I already have the names. So I think we'll just start. Okay. Good morning to the honorable adjudicators, lecturers, debaters, ladies and gentlemen. Before we start our debate today, please mute your microphones and ensure there will be no disturbance to the floor of this debate. I would like all participants to turn on their cameras for this competition. I am Aimini Balkis and I will be the chairperson for this debate session. Meanwhile, Alifah Ilyana will be the timekeeper for this debate. This House would like to call upon the motion that this House believes that artificial intelligence, AI, should govern and oversee the country of Malaysia. Now, I would like to clarify the rules and regulations of this debate competition. For the substantive speech, the timekeeper will ring the bell at the end of the first minute to show that the point of information, POI, can now be delivered. The timekeeper will ring once at the beginning of 6 minutes to show that time for POI is over. The timekeeper will ring twice at the 7th minute, after which the speaker has 15 seconds to conclude their speech. Then the timekeeper will ring continuously to show that the time is over and any further explanation will not be taken into account. After both sides have presented their speeches, 3 minutes will be given to each team to prepare for their reply speeches. The opposition side will present their reply speech first, followed by the government side. Reminder, no new arguments and POIs are to be presented in the reply speeches. For the reply speeches, the timekeeper will ring once at the end of 3rd minute to indicate that the speaker has 1 minute left to conclude their speech. And the timekeeper will ring twice at the 4th minute, in which the speaker has 10 seconds to conclude. Finally, the timekeeper will ring continuously to indicate that the time is over. All right. All debaters are expected to have a reliable and good internet connection during this debate. Should there be any unavoidable circumstances where debaters lose connection during their speech, 5 minutes will be granted for debaters to regain their connection. If debaters fail to gain connection within the 5 minutes, marks will be given according to how far they presented before the connection was lost. A sound check will be done as now I announce the speakers of each team. When your name is called, please test your microphones to ensure you are audible. Please inform the committee if there are any problem or technical issues. Fulminar from UTM will be acting as a government team with Ms. Nuris Akila as the Prime Minister. Ms. Nuris Akila, are you here?
Yes.
All right, thank you. Ms. Alia as the Deputy Prime Minister. Ms. Alia, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
And Mr. Daniel Najib as a government whip. Mr. Daniel Najib, are you here?
Hi, yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Then UITM SI from UITM Suri Iskandar will be acting as the opposition team for this debate, with Ms. Nadira as the opposition leader. Ms. Nadira, are you here?
Hello, here.
Okay. Mr. Arif as the deputy leader of opposition. Mr. Arif, are you here? Ms. Amira as the opposition whip. Ms. Amira, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you. I shall now introduce our adjudicators, Mr. Kaviraj and Mr. Ori Chun Kiat. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I call upon the Prime Minister, Ms. Nuris Akila, to open the case for the government. The floor is yours.
Thank you to the chairperson. So before I start today's debate, I would like to give you a quote from the Best Animated Feature in 2019, which is the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, A Leap of Faith. Now, again, I greet a big greet to the chairperson, the two adjudicators which are here today, timekeepers, the government, my government members, and also the opposition team. Okay, so today, um, uh, 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 the topics that's being introduced today is that AI should govern and oversee the Malaysian politics. So before I get into the debate, I would just give a guideline what the government team will do today. The first thing is that we would give our definition and our scope to the debate today. And then we will go into three arguments, which one will be introduced by me. The result wouldn't be one-sided. And then another two of it will be introduced by my Deputy Minister, which is the Malaysia democracy politics is secured and the outsource ethically important, AI outsource ethically important decisions. And then lastly, my government would construct the whole debate itself. Now, let's go to the definitions. So AI, we would define it as a broad science of copying human abilities and govern. Next, we would define govern as a conduct the policy, actions, affairs with authority. Now, the scope of our debate for today is that the policy of the AI would be transparent, so people could earn the trust more, and also to avoid manipulation of the humans. Not only that, our stakeholders for today are the people of Malaysia. Now, before that, any POIs? Okay.
Yes, please. Can you specify how the AIs would work and how they would actually function?
Thank you to the question. AI would function as politicians and a tool in this government of Malaysia. Now let me introduce to the first point, which is the result would be one-sided. Currently, we see one thing that's been mentioning in Twitter, Instagram, all over social media. We cannot deny that the Malaysia current politics is in havoc. This is due to the human politicians that are currently involved in the Malaysian government as to be very greedy. The thing about implementing AI into this havoc politics is that it can bring it can be the miracle that we are hoping for. One thing about AI is its deep learning feature. So if we feed AI with an unbiased data to the AI, it can make decisions without putting greed into it. We can make fair decisions. Yes, I can accept that, POI.
Who would be feeding the data to the AI, and also will the AI work as an individual, as in it would be completely on its own?
Okay.
Specifically, who would be feeding the data?
Thank you to that question. So who's feeding the data? Everyone is going to feed on the data, because data is just not only one thing. It can be everything. So it can be a lot of things, such as like social media and all of that. So those are things that are going to be being fed to the AI itself. Now, I think one thing about AI being involved in politics, it's actually not a new thing, and it's actually a wanted thing, in something that is wanted. So, for example, in the European countries, because of ongoing electing corrupted politicians, 51% Europeans want AI to overtake the the politics, because in their mind, they can govern in a more democratic way, and also all um, the results, the way that they govern would be more fair. Now, I'll give you an example that is happening in Longgang, Shenzhen, which is the smart city. So, what I think about Longgang is that a lot of technologies are being used there to help with governing in that area. So, things such as the smart city will monitor the school, hospital, electricity, water, and collect the data of urban planning AI. And also, if anything illegal or illegal structure that is constructed there, it will be, and if the AI detects it, it will be demolished as soon as possible. So this is why I take this as an example, because this is a one step closer to AI governing the economy. Right now in Shenzhen, it's being as a tool. So it isn't impossible one day if AI governance, because as we know, they are going through deep learning, and one day they will achieve where they can possess the human, where they can entirely copy the human abilities. And so that's why the government is very proud to present these points, and also that AI can take over the politics in Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke for 6 minutes and 49 seconds. Now let us invite Opposition Leader, Ms. Nadira, to state the Opposition's objections with regards to today's motion.
Hello, am I clear enough?
Yes?
On side opposition, we recognize our country as it is today. We are a democratic country. Let's not forget that. And from side government, we haven't exactly seen a clear path towards what they want to implement and how they want to implement the AI. Given they're saying AI functions as politicians, given they're saying AI being able to copy human ability, and given the fact that when I asked, they are saying that AI feeds on data given by everyone. That's a very big and large scope for us to actually cover. And to that point, it would make this AI, this motion, very vulnerable if government were to actually go with it. Now, on side opposition today, we would like to be realistic. We'd like to actually go through one by one of the stages how the AI should work and how it will not actually work out if they were to be if AI would have to govern and oversee our country, Malaysia. They define govern as being able to oversee policies, be policymakers practically. It's AI that I didn't even mention exactly how they should work. Now, I did ask, they did answer for the fact that the AI would have been fed the data from everyone. Everyone specifically who? By politicians, by professionals, or by the whole citizens of Malaysia. And on if whether or not it works on its own as an individual, it would be responsible as itself. They didn't answer my question on that. Now I'll go straight to my rebuttals on this. They're saying that AI can be a tool. Exactly, they're proving themselves wrong here in this case, because they say AI would be merely a tool. Why? Yes, they are saying AI has been used in politics already, but only as a tool, not as an individual that actually governs the country properly. Why is this not okay? Because number one, they didn't even actually have someone controlling the AI behind. There should be someone actually survey. This AI should actually be under surveillance of professionals. Let's say the ones that actually be able to maintain them as mechatronics, someone who actually knows about politics. And on side opposition, we expected the government to actually have a party, let's say, to actually oversee and at least administer, or to the least point, at least have surveillance on this AI for it to not go wrong. Now, it makes it very vulnerable. So let's say because the AI on site government today is not watched or surveyed under surveillance of any party, then if something goes wrong, then the whole country is now in ashes. Now moving on straight to my rebuttals. Today I'll be talking about political vulnerability. Now they didn't mention on how the parties will be able. Let's not forget that our country is a democratic country. So let's say we would be putting AI into the government. We will be making AI the government itself. How would you actually get? Are you trying to rob the rights of the people today in our country, where we have rights to actually vote for who we want to rule our country? Then in this case, the government side didn't make it clear on how they actually want to put AI in the country initially in the part. So whether AI would be independently serving the country or governing the country, or there should be a political party behind it, which side opposition would actually think is at least better, although not, because of another point I will be giving out later. Now, this will eventually become saying as if they are trying to create this, changing our political system from our country of being a democratic country into dictatorship. So they're proposing a whole different government, a whole different structure, which once again they did not specify how, which would make it very, very vulnerable. And eventually, what would happen here is that this will, yes, they would rob away the rights of the people, and eventually the people will go against it. Going against it might even eventually result in the civil war. What would happen when this is civil war? This is civil war. Our country will be into ashes. The economy will become horrible. Everything is going to ashes in terms of this government governed by AI itself. Okay, moving on. Now, considering there is someone watching this AI, governing this, I mean, like actually maintaining this AI, because for a fact, we all know, we've mentioned that AI is copying human ability, and they do feed on our data. So still, there should be a person behind it, controlling it, maintaining it to its the most optimum state. Before I continue, any POIs? Thank you very much. So now corruption can happen. Why? Let's say there would be someone actually watching it, because logically there should be. There's no possibility that the AI can stand on its own alone from initially, because, well, we all know AI is not God, ladies and gentlemen. Corruption. How will corruption happen? Because the people behind it will eventually be politicians as well. Why? Because we need political administration. We need political ways. We need to know how to actually administer the country. I mean, it's not only about technology. It's not only about the advancement in certain sectors. It's about governing. It's about knowing how to handle the education system. It's about knowing how to handle the economic system. It's about knowing how to handle the health work system, and so many other sectors in a country that a country is made out of. So for you to say that AI is just simply going to help the people, you're talking about the people, and yes, you even mentioned that the stakeholders here are the people. You are actually putting the people, you are robbing the rights of the people to actually choose the government. Why? Because you're giving this government to a different entity, a different body completely, who is a robot, and we wouldn't even know who would be behind it. So let's say corruption were to happen, it would be very, very vulnerable to that, because why? It would be so easy for them to be fed with data, which you didn't specify how, to be fed with data that would be wrong and eventually corrupt the country, as we all know. And the current political state of our country right now, of many people who are corrupted, they're saying AI is the cure to it, but we're saying on side opposition, it's actually opening the doors to many more corruptions. So it's not helping anything, but rather than making it worse, making the situation worse. So on side opposition today, we like to be realistic. We would like to protect our people. We would like our country to stay in one piece. And to that thought, we do not support, we do not think that AI should be governing and overseeing the country of Malaysia. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Nadira. The opposition leader spoke for 7 minutes and 8 seconds. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister, Ms. Alia, to counter the opposition's arguments.
Mic test. Can you hear me? Okay. So thank you, Chairperson, for introducing me. Assalamualaikum and a very good day I bid to the honorable educators the timekeepers, the program recorders, and to the fellow opposition and government teams. So here's how I will structure my speech. I will first start with the rebuttals and rebuttals of the to counter the opposition team before reinforcing what has been said by the Prime Minister. And finally, elaborate more on our second and third point, in which it is how AI has already outsourced ethically important decisions to algorithms, and how the Malaysian democracy politics is still guaranteed and secured because of the AI transparency policy that we are implementing. Okay, so to start off with the rebuttals, the opposition mentioned on how there is political vulnerability to our stance, to our decision of implementing AI to govern and oversee and oversee the government. So there's something that I like to clear up here that wasn't focused by our Prime Minister, in which the the democratic stance of Malaysia is still maintained and guaranteed. However, the AIs, it's not like there will be a data dictatorship in our government. The democracy is still maintained because there will still be parties involved to surveil the AIs. However, as my PM mentioned, everyone will be able to feed the data given. And this
Your eye, please.
Sorry, wait. And
Okay.
this the way that we see it is that everyone in the context of the citizens, in which there'll be like one party that maintains and controls. However, just like the example given, the city of Longan in Shenzhen, most of the data will be contributed by the whole. It won't be as a biased kind of contribution of data. So and this is in relation to our transparency policy, in which there will be no manipulation of a specific party and humans, and because no one has 100% control of it. And so I believe that the people will actually trust AI better than the human government because of this transparency policy. Because as we know today, the politics now is in quite a disadvantageous state, because many our citizens do not trust the politic party because of their history and their usual stance of being in a biased state and not accepting the decision, the considerations of other parties. So, okay, yes.
Can you specify exactly what the transparency policy is in detail?
Okay, so our transparency policy means that this the governing of AI would be surveilled and displayed to our citizens, in which like the whole concept of our future smart cities would be to monitor such as like schools and hospitals, the electricity. It will all be monitored to collect the data and for the urban planning of AI. And in this way, the whole process would be displayed to and will be shared to the citizens, so that there won't be anything that's hidden from their view. Okay, so going to my points. So we'd say that AI has already been used for like kidney transplants, air traffic controls, and basically a lot of things. So part of the reason we turn these decisions over the algorithms is to eliminate a significant source of human error. So that is something that we focus on because the uh, political stance in Malaysia now is very, very much affected by human biasness, human greed, and yes, basically our big problem right now, and we are trying to fix it. So with the implementation of AI, a lot of things can be a lot of solutions can be made. And going to the next point, Malaysian democracy politics will still be secured because of this transparency policy, because the AI will be making decisions without being interrupted by biased decisions or the outside influences. And bribery in politics, which is actually a very big issue in our country right now, can be totally eradicated because AI's decision isn't affected by emotions or greed or gain. They act based on the data given, and that is why their decisions, the AI's decisions, would benefit the people of Malaysia more because they aren't affected by all these outside influences. Their decision will be the proof. They will have proof on. They'll have enough proof on why their decision made is the right decision for the people of Malaysia, and that is why the government stands on this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Alia. The Deputy Prime Minister spoke for 7 minutes and 10 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition, Mr. Arif.
Hello, can you guys hear me clearly? Is it okay? Okay, thank you guys. I'm sorry if I sound a bit sleepy or something. Please, if I mumble or something, please forgive me, okay? Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone, especially the chairman, fellow juries, and honorable timekeeper, and members of the floor. So I won't be wasting that much time. I think I'll just go on to what the Prime Minister said. First and foremost, she talked about feeding data from a lot of people, right? And from everybody and a lot of bodies, basically. Okay. So this is in relation to, I think, in relation more to politics. And if that is true, Prime Minister, how would you answer that? How can you ensure the AI feeds off data from absolutely everybody? Because in the situation that we are in right now, especially in rural areas, right? Not in Sabah, especially not only in Sabah, in Sarawak, and also some rural areas in West Malaysia, data in forms of the most simple internet can't even be prepared for them, right? Okay, that's one. And also another big issue that is rebutted by my leader of opposition, AI can also be easily manipulated by corrupted men from behind the scenes. Okay, now I'll try to give you a parallel to this. Okay, in today's construction industry, let's say for example, okay, the construction industry has, and I do agree, they do have the trusted professionals in the field, which is us basically. Right, we are the trusted professionals. However, unfortunately, and I have seen this in front of my eyes and I have heard it with my own ears, unfortunately, we are manipulated by corrupted politicians, corrupted men behind the scenes. So what? To gain their personal benefits in improving their own personal infrastructures and so on. So who does this affect and how does this affect? This basically affects the people who are a bit, who are not as well off as us, who are financially stable, right? The people who are basically the B40, okay, sometimes the M42, okay? So people that do not have the influence as much as the people who are, the people behind the scenes, the politicians, right? They are basically undermined and held back. And how this is significant is because basically now the infrastructure-wise, let's say, because I'm giving a parallel in the construction field, basically now infrastructure-wise, the people who are not as well off, they are not catered to, okay? Now, besides that, I think the Deputy Prime Minister also talked about how democracy in Malaysia is ensured. I hope that is true, okay? Because if then, I would like to question the government side. If that is very true, then how would you explain the situation where the backdoor government suddenly appears out of nowhere and it couldn't be avoided? If it is true that the democracy in Malaysia is still maintained and is still ensured, how can a backdoor government suddenly appear in the span of a year and a half? This suddenly has been visible to all of us, right? And that is with what? This sort of government right now that we have, the backdoor government, right? What is it with? It comes with corrupted human politicians, with human nature, and their own susceptible errors, right? With artificial intelligence that the government proposes, right? Which will then be, in our prediction, will be overseen by these exact people behind the scenes, these corrupted politicians too, right? So the Deputy Prime Minister also stated about that no one has 100% control over the artificial intelligence. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Then if that is true in your side, then why is the side government also advocating it in the first place? Why is side government advocating the artificial intelligence in the first place if they don't want to take full responsibility in the first place, right? Are you just going to let the artificial intelligence go rampant and wild, executing their errors, right? Okay, so moving on. What are some of the other problems I would like to bring forth in AI governing and overseeing Malaysia? It's artificial errors is one, and also unemployment too. Okay, now I'll try to elaborate this a bit. Hopefully you guys can understand. Okay, so artificial errors, right? It relates to the AI's perception. Okay, and as we know, artificial intelligence are evidently very susceptible towards errors. Okay, now why do we say that? It's because basically, in a simple structure, is basically that artificial intelligence, like we know, are made from humans themselves, from us basically, who are we in our own are very susceptible to our own errors, right? That we can agree on. We can also agree that artificial intelligence has perception that is way different than humans, not unlike human perception. The sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of vision is also so different. And that is a very big difference that impacts the artificial intelligence that will then oversee the whole of Malaysia, everyone in Malaysia. How can you rely on that? Okay, yeah, sure.
So now you mentioned about human errors. What about the machines that are made by humans that are currently being in success?
Okay, now that's a good POI. Okay, the machines that are currently made by humans, right? We are not saying that there's no errors whatsoever. But here's the thing. We are not letting those machines governing Malaysia. We are not letting those machines govern Malaysia. I think we can agree on that, right? So is it more vulnerable, let's say politically? Is it more volatile now in this case? No, right? We are still in control of the machines. But now, side government is proposing that we just let the AI govern the whole of Malaysia. That seems a bit problematic in my opinion and in opposition's opinion also. Okay, so furthermore, I would like to add also artificial intelligence in anything is limited to its own field of view. Much like I said, the sensory is really not the same. Like the human sensory and perception. On top of that, unlike human nature, these artificial beings who are handmade, handcrafted beings, who are of their own artificial nature that has been predisposed towards a certain nature, this means that the people behind creating the artificial intelligence, they can easily manipulate the nature of the artificial intelligence towards a nature that they want, right? And this can bring up to corruption and so on, okay? And besides that, we'll also try to talk about a little bit about unemployment, okay? Unfortunately, if we can agree on that in today's situation, due to the pandemic, right? Due to the pandemic, a lot of people have lost their jobs and are currently taking their side jobs, right? So what if we then try to introduce the AI into politics, let's say? Now, bit by bit, right? We're trying to introduce AI not into politics, into the industry of construction, into arts, into, let's say, teaching. And then evidently, we can say that people will slowly lose their jobs time by time. And that will lead to further unemployment, right? I hope that side government and side opposition and members of the floor can agree on my speech today. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Arif. The Deputy Leader of Opposition spoke for 7 minutes and 2 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the government with Mr. Daniel Najib. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Ah, I feel sick. Give me a moment. So thank you to the chairperson and also the timekeeper, esteemed timekeeper, for letting me taking the floor for the opposition side, government side. I'm sorry. So to begin my debate speech, reply speech, yeah, debate. I would like to try to strengthen our points and also try to debate a few things from the opposition side as well. So the first thing that the opposition side said was that about the unemployment rates due to the AI governing. It is not that the AI is taking over in order to like make everyone lose their jobs. It is in order to make benefit to the country itself, whether it is through medical purposes or other sectors as well. Because as we can see from, like we said just now, Shenzhen, the smart city in Shenzhen, it will monitor schools, it will monitor hospitals and electricity and water and such, so that each sector will be like fully monitored and also can be it can be made better by the AI, because AI is continuously thinking due to its deep learning process, and where that it could make lots of solutions from one problem itself. And the next one that the opposition side said is that a backdoor government suddenly appeared and more corrupted people will come. That one that is because, and that is why we actually did the transparency policy. Transparency policy is about making all of the decisions made by the AI and also all of its processes be made visible to other people. As we all know that the government in Malaysia is fully corrupted and that we don't know what's yes, go away.
The transparency policy,
Yes.
how would you actually make it visible to the people the way you say it? How exactly would that be?
Okay, thank you. We can make it visible by giving, like, maybe like going on talk shows and explaining on what this AI would do. Maybe we can show the processes of it, maybe in social media as well, like Twitter, Instagram, maybe a few Pinterest posts maybe. And that's how we can make it transparent to the public, so that they can believe, they can actually like put their trust wholly on AI without any further anxiety, without being anxious, without being worried about the AI actually like taking over and being a dictatorship policy, having a dictatorship policy. So and that's why there will be no backdoor parties, as the AI itself would only be implemented in the parties that we all know, like maybe I'm not gonna mention the parties itself, but the main parties itself, and there will be like surveillance and also like actions be taken care of, with also some of guidelines against future VIVs and also backdoor governments. And then, and also you said once that how to collect info from rural places without any internet. Well, that's only in the beginning. Yes, that will happen, but once AI takes over, it will actually come up with solutions, and also maybe they will come up with a better economic plan for the future. And I won't be accepting NPOIs, thank you. And they will actually like rack up more income money, and also will make the country better. So moving on to the points that are stated for my DPM and also my PM. All right, we already outsourced ethically important decisions to algorithms, like We use them for kidney transplants, air traffic control, and to determine who gets treated first in emergency rooms. So seeing from there, we can make the country better, not from a political stance, but also from medical purposes and also economic purposes as well. And like I said before, the Malaysian democracy politics is guaranteed, and it will be secured because of the transparency policy. Well, due to human trust and human nature as well. And then what else? And like my DPM said, bribery can also be eradicated by when AI will come in, because AI only has one job and one job specifically, which is to govern the nation. Govern the nation excellently and without any faults. And if there will be any like backdoor, like you said, like people from behind the scenes, like giving false data towards the AI itself, then there will actually be like countermeasures that were came up with to counter those sorts of people. And from the what do you call this from the speech, from the reply, from the speech that I've given just now, we would like to strongly uphold our belief that AI can actually take over, and not take over, but govern, and will become a tool in order to make Malaysia politics in Malaysia a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dan and Najib, for the points given. The government whip spoke for 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Next, I would like to call upon the opposition whip, Ms. Amira, to present her case.
Thank you, Ms. Chairperson. Now, let me present you with my rebuttals towards the government team. So, the government team said that the AI will serve as politician. So, if the AI serve as the politician, then how they do not explain how exactly this AI will serve as politician. Like, will they be doing the tasks that the politician do? But how will they learn? Because the Prime Minister clearly said that the data that the AI will retrieve from are from everything and everyone. For example, the social media. However, how would the AI be able to discrete which data is necessary to govern the country? Because we need to remember that the data that comes from social media are not every data that comes from the social media itself is important and is crucial to be using to govern the country. As human itself, we learn specific skills and also knowledge to become professional. This is very crucial because imagine if a robot is not fit with specific knowledge, how will it be able to learn what kind of function it should have, and what kind of duty it should do? So how exactly will this AI be able to become politician without the necessary and without the specific and organized data that it should has? Next, this robot will end up to be a merely like a Google search, where you can find almost every data that exists in the world, but without being able to do any specific duty with this set data. Okay, how about we? Okay, now let's view it from another light. The government team need to remember that they are citizens without the access of this internet. So how will the government side get their data for their needs and their issue that they are coming up with? So the third speaker, the government whip, mentioned that the AI will come up with a solution. Maybe, he said. but the government failed to explain, especially how and what these solutions are. Because let's us think, without the data needed by the without the data from this rural area, how exactly will this AI come up with solution from nothing? They are not human. They are not able to think of a solution from a data with logical thinking. They need the data collection in order to come up with a solution. Now, next, the government team also said that a party of politician will be surveying over this data pool. So how exactly the government gonna ensure that this state party won't manipulate the data? Sure, the government said that no one has 100% control over the AI, but however, the window of being able to survey over the data pool will open to data manipulation. This will not solve the corruption issue that the government wants to solve so much. These corrupted people does not need 100% control over the AI. They only need the small sliver of opportunity to manipulate the technology and to get this self gain. So the second speaker mentioned that the AI does not accept bribery, as the AI has no emotions. We need to remember that artificial intelligence, like sentient, which I hopefully are what the government is hoping to use, because sentient is the only artificial robot that is able to learn from itself. So sentient robots actually can mimic emotions. So again, the bribery not be might not be in money form, but they could be in any form. Even if the AI does not accept bribery, let me remind you, like the second speaker said, that this politician will be the one that's surveying and controlling this said AI. It might not be 100%, but they can still be able to control a certain amount of it. This is enough to let them control over the artificial intelligence technology and will lead to this said bribery issues. So again, the problem that the governments want to solve so much is still there and still exists. So next, about the transparency issue policy, I do not understand. The government said that they will implement this transparency issue, but failed to specifically say how. They only mentioned that the policy allows the society to see over how the artificial intelligence govern by showing the process of the AI technology. My question is exactly, how? By live streaming the database? If that is how, that is going to be a really huge problem. Why? Because it's open to the vulnerability to hackers taking over the system, which could lead to terrorism. This, we need to remember that we are letting this AI technology to govern our country. If terrorism to happen to this AI technology, it's going to be a terrorism against our country, and it's going to bring disaster and eventually going to cause the loss of life and war. So other than that, by exposing this database, even though you are saying you are exposing this database on the transparency policy, we need to remember not everyone will understand this database. Not everyone is educated in this section of specialty in this technology. Okay, so not everyone is educated in it, especially those in a lower class community, which unfortunately gonna come from the rural area. So how exactly are they gonna cover the whole country by using this AI technology alone? We have humans politicians right now. They are able to go site visit to solve this issue. So with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Amira. The opposition whip spoke for 7 minutes and 7 seconds. Now, 3 minutes will be given to both teams to prepare for their reply speeches, and the time starts now. Your 3 minutes is up. Ladies and gentlemen, this debate will resume with the reply speeches. Let us now invite the opposition team to sum up the case for today's debate.
Hello once again. I'm clear enough. I haven't started. Just checking the mic. All right. The motion today is easily declined for many, many reasons. Side government was not able to deliver this motion properly. Side government did not answer our questions. And for that, why the motion should be declined. Now, let's go one by one. From the start of the debate, the government is proposing that this AI would function as humans, that this AI would function as politicians. And yet, when I asked about how it would be an individual body, they didn't answer. Only further on said that it would be governed by politicians and specific political parties. Now, which then again makes our argument for the fact that there's a vulnerability towards the political state. Why? Because they're saying it still will still be in this democratic state for the fact that they have parties controlling over it, for the fact that they actually have this transparency, which on our side it seems more of a translucent and closer to opaque kind of policy here, because they're proposing that these data, the way AI is administering our government, would be published towards the people. This is very vulnerable in a way that is because it's a one-way communication. Specifically, we've mentioned before that on our side of opposition, we actually have concern towards how this AI could eventually become corrupted. Why? Because there would be a political body behind it. There would be a party behind it. And they're backing that up with this transparency policy, which in the first place isn't even that much of a stable policy in itself. They wouldn't even specify on how it should work. And even though they did even mention with the word maybe, they said that with the word maybe, this policy would be commenced by actually broadcasting the data administered by the AI towards the people, which in the end, yes, we would love to see how it is administered, but no, you should. The fact that it should be known that when people actually see how it is governed, you will not be able to satisfy everyone. And in the end, for that to happen easily, if the AI actually becomes a part of the government, if the AI actually has control over policies and oversees the Malaysian the nation, oversees the nation, eventually people will be against it for the ways of it. Why? Because we can't exactly satisfy everyone. Now, on-site opposition, we said to you that the corruption could easily happen. We told you that unemployment could easily happen. This is mentioned many, many times by our side. On number one, why? Corruption. Because there's a political body behind it in the first place. And you're saying that this nobody would have 100% control over it, which makes it even more worse. Why? Because if the AI is not under control 100%, it would make it even more vulnerable. And, well, eventually, crisis again. Now, we also mentioned on our side, we're saying that AI isn't exactly able to be accessed by everyone in the country. Why? Because not everyone in our country actually has access to the internet, and the transparency policy right there again does not work. So on our side of opposition, we're realistic in this. However, the side of government today is living in utopia, where the people are ideals, where the politicians are idealistic. They're living in this make-believe world that will eventually, they're trying to be positive, but being positive will eventually lead to crisis for the fact that there could be many, many vulnerabilities toward corruption and many other political crises. And for the fact that they say that they're going to be transparent on this, only through broadcasting, which would be a one-way communication. Just that already shows how side government today, why the motion should be declined. For that, thank you very much from side opposition.
Thank you, Ms. Nadira, for summing up the opposition's team. Lastly, we'll welcome the government team to sum up their case for today's debate.
Mic test, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, Assalamualaikum once again to everyone in this room. So, the government team would like to summarize and firmly show you why that this motion still stands and why it is a step forward for Malaysia in this current era. So, we all have established that the whole world is moving forward and AI is inevitable towards the development of the nation. So we understand that the opposition has worries on its drawbacks and on its disadvantages, but I would like to remind you that every innovation has its drawbacks, and we believe strongly that AI can be the next step forward in terms of human evolution. So we should not underestimate mankind's ability to develop it further in ways that would uh, it would perform much better than the current human politicians as we see now. Because what they fail to mention is how corrupted and how disadvantageous our Malaysian political problem is at the current state. And we are trying our best to find a solution to it because this problem has been going on for decades and there has not been a solid solution for it, which is why we are trying to bring about better and, as you can see, a more drastic change to serve for the people. And we are trying to protect the people in becoming more and more victims of this current political stance. Therefore, we want to emphasize that this motion is still protecting the position of our citizens, of our Malaysian citizens, because as we said, the transparency policy will benefit them in a lot of ways. So, and to mention that I believe that this development of AI isn't too far-fetched, and we aren't, and the statement that you are saying that we are living in a utopia is completely false, because I believe that you are still living in the past, because this problem won't be solved just by staying in this political stance. And we know that the development of AI will be much and much more complex because of its deep learning capabilities. So the development of AI would reach a state where it has the ability to synthesize the data and information that it is accepting and would give a solution to problems that the human mind cannot proceed. So with all that, I would like to just say that compare this with all the other industrial revolutions in the past, like just as steam engines and electricity did in the past, AI is transforming our world and we shouldn't miss the train. We as a developing country has to follow the examples of developed countries so that we will be able to move forward. And that is why the government's motion has to is supposed to be supported. And I rest my case. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Alia, for summing up the government's case. Ladies and gentlemen, with that marks the end of the debate today. Honorable adjudicators will be directed to another breakout room for 10 minutes to decide the winner of this debate. Sehat. Okay, I forgot to take a picture. Okay, wait. Okay, so now I'm going to take a picture of you guys. Okay, ready? Yeah? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, another one. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
All right, guys. Hold on. Chunket is here, right? Yep, he's here. So we'll give you all the results. Tell you all which. We'll give you the results. Tell you which team won and why they won. And if you all want personal adjudicating feedback, you can come and contact me and Chunket after this debate. So Chunket, if you have anything to add on, please feel free. Okay, because both of us actually reached a consensus on this. So the winner for today's debate goes to Team Opposition from UITM SI. So congratulations, guys. The motion has not been passed. And the reason why they won compared to Team Government is because of several reasons. Like the biggest issue coming from government is that they lack a lot of mechanization. And Team Opposition was smart enough to catch them on that and constantly bang on that. And I felt like at one point, government team just gave into what opposition wanted the debate to be, and that kind of made them shot themselves in the foot. What I mean by that is, like, I think if government team came up and said, okay, guys, the mechanization of this will look like this, whereby we will have something like an independent body that overlooks it, rather than to follow the tune or the rhythm of the opposition, in which they say, like they kept saying that politicians will be involved and therefore corruption and reliability could be an issue. So the government team could have stamped the bleeding simply by having a better mechanization. This was one of the biggest issues, right? But beyond that, there were also, I would say, 3 major points of clashes, and the 3 being, 1, the reliability issues, and under that, there were talks about artificial errors versus human errors and read. There were talks about deep learning and how that would help solve, like how that would cater to the problem of the various parts in Malaysia that may not feed data into the AI system. And then there's also other talks about corruption. So 3 issues under the big topic of reliability. And I felt like on all 3, in corruption, in the deep learning matters, and in artificial errors, all 3 of them were won by Team Opposition. And then there was another clash point on the trust and transparency process. This was much clearer, right? Like at least the reliability issues, I think there was a lot of engagement in it. But in the trust and transparency system, the trust and transparency of the AI system, right? To me, this was, I award the win to government, and I agree with you, we did discuss about this. Although it came very clear towards the end that the win can be awarded to opposition, the third speaker basically came in and said, like, even if you wanted to make it very transparent, as said by the government with their transparency policy and whatnot, it opens up to a lot of other problems like, terrorist attacks, and I believe one more was something that people cannot understand the system. We don't credit this a lot because it really came at the very end of the debate. Nobody can respond to this, but ultimately, when compared to the lack of analysis coming from government on their transparency policy, like because of that, we could not award the win to government, and we had to give the win to Team Opposition. And finally, on the protection of democracy, right? This to me was one of the only principal arguments in the debate that was brought forward by the first speaker in the opposition. I don't think this was like handled or engaged completely by the government, apart from them saying we have a transparency policy, therefore we don't have to worry about the democracy of the country. And also, coming back to what I said earlier, because the government kind of like fell into the trap of the opposition by taking their version of this, their version of the mechanism of this policy, which is politicians will be involved, then it makes it very clear that you're not going to protect democracy because, of course, if the politicians are involved, they might have their own agendas. So, like I said earlier, had the government come in and say, no, guys, you're not, I don't know what opposition is trying to say by including these politicians or whatnot, then you come and say, actually, we want something like an independent body, then it becomes much harder for their points to stand, their points being the opposition. And then finally, we also awarded to win to them under smaller points that were engaged, but still we give the win to the opposition, and those points include things like the unemployment issues. It was, to me at least, and I believe Chunke, it was much easier to buy the argument that once you have artificial intelligence in the system, a lot of people will lose jobs. And we were hoping that at least from the government side, they would say something like, yeah, it's okay even if they lose jobs, because maybe the current system in the current governmental, what do you call the government system? I forgot what you call the government. The current governmental penjawat awam lah. Penjawat awam is bloated. So if you said something like that, so then it makes sense that even if you lose jobs, it's not a big deal because there's too many jobs in fact there. And then the artificial error thing, right? I think this was a big point coming from opposition, but it was not well elaborated. But at least there was something. Like if opposition came in and talked about the emotional aspect that sort of is lacking in AI, this would have been a very clear-cut win to their side. And that's basically it, guys. So the two biggest issues coming from the two biggest issues to why we awarded the win to the opposition is because there was a lack of mechanization from government, and a lot of the points were edged out by the opposition. So if you guys have any questions or personal feedback you all want, you can contact me and Chunke after this debate. Chunke, do you have anything to add on? Please feel free.
Not really a new thing to add on, but maybe some advice for both teams. So I start from the opposition side. Yeah, you guys did point out a lot of good problems, but I would like to advise that a lot of the problems that you point out on AI is like they are as corrupted or they are as problematic as the current politician. It would be better if you try to claim that AI is even worse than the current situation and will make the country even worse. That would be better in some of the points down there. Okay, and then for the government part, right? Yeah, it is just we just need a clearer policy. So basically telling me that it is it will replace politician is simply not enough, because it will open to a lot of attacks from the opposition, like what Kavi has already mentioned just now. So there are ways to say, you can say that, there should be an independent body that is not controlled by politicians, that is controlled by other parties who is independent, for example, like the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, or perhaps some federal court judge, for example. So it would be a lot better and will be freer from this kind of manipulation. And another way is to just define government and oversee as something that is not control the policy of the entire country, but actually govern and oversee the daily life and the daily activities of government service, especially the civil service, which, as we know, is quite bloated and can help the government to save money and so on. There are some ways and policies which would be better. Yeah. So this is my comment, and if you have any question, you can ask.
Also, congratulations to both teams. I personally enjoyed the debate a lot. I thought it was very engaging, because the previous debates we had, they were not as engaging as this. This one had a lot of to and fro's. So thumbs up, guys.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed today's debate. And now you guys can leave if you want to. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, everybody.
Congrats.
Thank you, everyone.
Congratulations, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Siapa menang tadi?
Opposition.
Opposition, UITM SI.
Kavi.
Recorder, I think you can start